Aviva asked me, did I see her home? I saw what was left of her home and what was left of this peaceful kibbutz, full of people who were there hoping for a better future with the Palestinian people. And what we saw was beyond explanation. And even though we've been reading about everything and meeting with, particularly on the Foreign Affairs Committee, with everybody we could to talk about what happened, what Hamas did, you cannot fully understand the evil of what Hamas did to Israel until you are there standing in Kfar Aza or standing on the site of the Nova Festival. It is beyond description. So each of the families we have met with tell us about their loved ones. These are human beings. These are individuals who had hopes and dreams and whose family members are in agony because they worry about them every day. And it's hard to maintain hope, as we talked about, but we are here to support you. We are here to do everything we can to put pressure on Hamas, to put pressure on Egypt, to put pressure on Qatar, to put pressure on Turkey, and any government that can influence Hamas and the other terrorist groups who are holding their loved ones hostage. I'm going to turn this over to my good friend and colleague, Representative Don Davis, also from North Carolina, so you can make your remarks and get us started.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for bringing us here today. And to Aviva, just know that we are standing with you and that today is a reflection of our ability to speak loudly for Keith. I want to reiterate, the United States must, without any doubt, continue to stand strong in support of Israel. That's why we come together to call for the release of all hostages, the immediate release. People like Keith, father, husband. And I've heard of accounts of just a kind person, quiet person. That's what I've heard of Keith. And we need to return Keith and all hostages back to their families. This is the face of the realities of what we're dealing with. Real people, real lives, wanting to have their family members to sit down at the dinner table, to eat, break bread, to talk, and to catch up. So we're once again calling for the immediate release of all hostages. But for that to happen, we must provide our allies too with the resources they need to continue to defend themselves. Standing up to Hamas and upholding democracies around the world demands unwavering commitment. As a nation, we must stand united in our resolve to defeat Hamas, period, and ensure the safe return of all hostages. I will not rest until Keith Siegel is released. I want to be clear about that. So thank you for being here and helping to remind not only our nation, but the world of why we need to stay focused and, above all, to send a message. We don't know, but if Keith can hear us, to let Keith and all hostages know that we're doing everything around the clock to get you back to your family so that you can enjoy Aviva and your family once again.
Thank you so much, Don. We're going to ask Aviva Siegel to speak for a few minutes if you're able.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with me. My name is Aviva Siegel, and I'm 63 years old. Hostage woman. I should say I'm free. I'm a free hostage, but I'm not. I'm still there. I'm in those dark, scary tunnels. I'm scared to death. I'm hungry and thirsty, and I don't know if I'll ever go out. I don't have oxygen to breathe. I'm still there because my soul is still there. My body here is empty, sad, broken into pieces. We are here, wearing clean clothes, had something nice to eat and drink, but Keith is still in Gaza, praying for us to save him. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and imagine Keith begging for water, begging for something to eat, begging for some fresh air, begging for just standing and to move his body, begging to talk and begging to come home with us. Keith is an American. He's 64. I hope he's still alive. I hope he's still able to believe that one day he will be able to see the sun and breathe fresh air. When I was in Gaza, there were days that I wanted them to kill me. And now I want to ask you, the leaders of the world, what can I do? Where can I shout? I'm begging you, we need help. Keith needs your help. 133 people are now screaming for your help. You have to bring them home today. We are walking and we need to run. No woman should be touched without permission, and no human should be go through what I went through. We need them all back now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aviva. We're going to ask Yarden Gonen to come up and speak next. We're dead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Congresswoman Manning, and all the representatives who are showing their support for us today and every day at the last 6 months. My name is Yarden Gonen, but at the last 187 days, my only identity is Romi's oldest sister. My little sister, my baby little sister, 23 years old, was at a music festival 187 days ago and never came back. She went to a music festival to celebrate love, peace, happiness, freedom, friendship, and instead, she watched her best friend murdered in front of her eyes while she was shot on her arm and taken, kidnapped into Gaza by Hamas terrorists. Today, more than 6 months later, I can't be polite anymore. The whole world should be protesting by now after everything Hamas committed, but even especially after the story of Amit Sosana's experience in the hands of Hamas was revealed recently. Reading her testimony is reading my worst nightmare coming to life. Amit tried to resist and closed her legs while she was punched and dragged and had a gun pointed at her face. How can I know my baby sister is not repeatedly going through the same experience for 187 days now? Amit was left alone, naked, after forced to commit a sexual act from the terrorist watching her. Is Romy going through the same thing right now as we speak? Is Romy also suspended, hanging like chicken from a stick hanging between two couches, handcuffed, and feet tied with duct tape on her mouth and nose? Is she enduring the same torturing pain? This is not just the courageous Amit story. It could have happened and been any name. This is not just the Israeli story. In those dark, suffocating tunnels, there are civilians from additional 20 countries, 133 hostages. 8 of them are American. 19 of them are women. That we don't have to imagine the worst that could happen to them anymore. We can already hear that our nightmares come to life. These are our sisters, our women. We must stand up for them, unite, and scream out loud, no more. This is unacceptable. Let our people go. We must scream out loud so it would move mountains, because the hostages cannot scream for themselves. This is the fight of the free world against terrorism. That there wouldn't be a second 9/11, because Israel already had our second Holocaust on October 7th. The first step to stand up against terrorism is to stop what Hamas have started. Release all hostages immediately and unconditionally. 6 months have gone by and nothing changed. 6 months that these people are raped and tortured and starved, deprived of their humanity and dignity. Human rights is for all human. Women rights are for all women. 6 months and nothing's changed. Sadly, I'm here again, speaking at a press conference at another state congress. Sadly, I have to repeat the exact same words I shared 84 days ago on day 103. You are all lawmakers of the most powerful country in the world, a beacon of democracy, a defender of civil and human rights. Please, with this great power comes great responsibility. I ask you, please do everything you can to get our hostages home, where they deserve to be. This is a violation of international law, of basic human rights, and quite simply, a win for global terrorism if we don't get them back home. On a personal note, you all here have someone you care about deeply. I think that everyone across this great nation can agree that if it was their sister in a dark, suffocating tunnel, subjected to sexual abuse and brutality at the hands of pure evil, they would do anything to bring their sister safely home. Hamas, let my baby sister go. Let all the hostages go. And for all the leaders across the world, thank you for all your efforts and advocacy. Please don't give up on us. Don't give up on the hostages. Don't let terrorism win. Bring them home now. Thank you.
Thank you, Yarden. You could not have put it better, and your words have moved all of us. I'm going to ask Michael Levy to come up and speak next.
Hello, my name is Michael Levy. and I'm Olev's brother. 6 months ago, my baby brother Ol and his wife Einav decided to attend a music festival. And since then, he has missed so much. He missed his wife, his soulmate's funeral. He missed his 2.5-year-old son, Almog, learning new words. He missed my 3 girls, his nieces' birthdays. He missed our basketball teams qualified to the playoffs. He missed our father, who has stopped speaking since October 7th. He missed our mother crying herself to sleep every night. He is missing the chance to cuddle with his baby son every day. And for 6 months, I miss my baby brother. 6 months ago was the worst day of our lives. Ol was kidnapped by monsters after watching his soulmate being killed in front of him. Their 2.5-year-old son Almog is waiting without parents. I'm waiting. We are all waiting for him to come home, for all of them to come home. I promised my parents I'll bring him back. Please help me keep that promise. We are here in DC to say enough. The US and the world should tell Hamas, let them go. Let my brother come home. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I represent a district in Southeast Florida in the Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood area. Thank you, Congresswoman Manning, for bringing us together to strongly support in word and deed the hostage families who we have come to know, but I know many of us wish we have come to know them for other reasons. I had the privilege of leading what was my 3rd trip to Israel. The first was a delegation that was in the region on October 7th, and we were in Israel on October 10th. First delegation to meet with hostage families and victims, families who had murdered family members. And Kathy and I were on this trip just 2 weeks ago. And we went to the Nova concert site, festival site. I will never be able to unsee the images at that site. That site, on the road leading towards it, has burn marks in places along the road where cars were, with people in them, people were burned alive on that spot. You walk into the festival site, and there are hundreds and hundreds of markers where beautiful young people like Romy were, like Romy, were murdered in cold blood. And for me, being the mom of 3 mid-20s, 20, 23, and 23-year-old young people, all I could see as a mother and as a Jew was there but for the grace of God. And for me, there was only 2 months difference from October 7th and when my youngest daughter was in Israel for the whole summer. Our top priority is and should be providing for the safety, security, and integrity of the American people. It is absolutely imperative And my question here today is, why have the peace-loving nations, leaders of the world, not continued to call on Hamas to lay down their arms, to renounce violence, renounce their sworn commitment to the destruction of Israel and the killing of Jews? And why are world leaders allowing that necessity to fade into the background? They should be continuing, as our president has, to call for the hostages to be released and for Hamas to take the deal that has been on the table. We cannot rest while a terrorist group that has murdered Americans continues to hold Americans hostage. We went to Kfar Aza. We walked through the young adult area where the homes are of young adults. I am here to tell you, I want you to imagine a room not even a third the size of this one, whose walls and ceiling looked like Swiss cheese. It had so many bullet holes that had penetrated them. I've heard so many stories from hostage family members who, as Aviva expressed, feel hollow. If they even feel, I feel hollow. I as a Jewish mother, just each time I hear these stories and stand at a podium like this and stand up to lend our voices to the plight of the hostages and to the agony that the Jewish community worldwide is feeling right now. It cuts a little piece out of me every single time. Over the last 6 months, we've all met with dozens of October 7th survivors, released hostages and family members, many of you on multiple occasions, and so much that we've become friends. Every time I see my family, my children, in their faces, in the beautiful faces of the photos that are on my office wall door that we talk about on the House floor, that we talk about here today. The love of a parent, a child, a sibling knows no bounds, and I know a part of each of you, a part of all of us, has been held hostage too. Know that we carry all your loved ones in our hearts every day. I am awestruck by your resilience, honored to stand by your side, filled with shame and rage, and that after half a year, you are still praying, mourning, still trapped in the dark. Nothing is more critical than President Biden's tireless efforts to bring Americans and all hostages home right now. It's unconscionable that Hamas continues to reject the hostage deal and holds over 130 hostages in Gaza. It is despicable that those sick, violent fiends refuse to reunite these families, clinging like vultures to the remains of innocent civilians they have tortured, starved, raped, and murdered to use them as political leverage. Our message to the American people is consistent and clear. Hamas must not succeed. The hostages must come home. And I am proud that our nation's leaders, President Biden and Vice President Harris, have stood by Israel's side all this time, marshaling our leverage. And there's a deal on the table, spearheaded by the president, backed by our partners, that would get hostages home, aid into Gaza, and a pause in fighting. Hamas can end all the pain in our hearts and end the suffering of Israelis and innocent Palestinians, by the way. If they had any interest in peace, this could all be over. We must insist that Hamas accepts this deal. Anyone who wants to see a ceasefire must demand that from Hamas. 187 days of agony. Our fellow Americans and all the hostages must come home now. Those who have been lost must be brought home and laid to rest. And until that day, we will stand together, arm in arm with these families, with our ally against terrorism.
Thank you, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz. I'm Dan Goldman, Congressman from New York State, New York City, one of the largest Jewish populations outside of Israel. I can't believe I have to see you all again here. I can't believe we have to be here yet again, another month gone by, no action, very little pressure on Hamas to bring their loved ones home. Americans may not care that there are 133 hostages, nearly all of them Jewish. I don't know why, but let's assume that that's the case. Since when do Americans not care that a terrorist group is holding hostage other Americans? And we now know they are torturing them, they are raping them, they are suffocating them, and we know many have died in captivity. Where is the outrage? Where is the anger? Where are the calls for Hamas to release the hostages? Because there can be no ceasefire agreement of any kind without the hostages coming home. And if you disagree with that, I would like to speak to you. But if you agree with that, then you acknowledge that Hamas must be party to any ceasefire agreement. And so we will continue to push Israel to do the right thing, to enter into a ceasefire agreement that will require Israel to release convicted terrorist murderers from their prisons. It will require Israel to stop, at least for some time, their mission to eradicate Hamas, a terrorist group that executed the worst terrorist attack on Jews since the Holocaust. But where is the outrage against Hamas? Where are the voices calling for Hamas to release the hostages? And so we hear they're a terrorist group. They don't abide by laws. What can we do? They're not a state. Really? We just give terrorist groups a pass? All right then. How about Qatar? How about Egypt? How about Turkey, who have harbored Hamas leaders, who have access and connections to the military leaders on the ground? Where is the outrage against them? I will tell you, we speak now, and we will continue to get angrier and angrier. And we will continue to push our government and governments around the world using our leverage and our might to force countries that have access to Hamas to pressure them to release the hostages. And the best way we all can do this is if you all do it too with us. I was in Tel Aviv on October 7th with my children 9, 6, and 5. What we dealt with isn't even in the same stratosphere as what Yarden, Michael, Aviva have dealt with and are dealing with. But my children are still traumatized by that experience. And we went to a therapist who suggested one way to help them would be to get a puppy. So we let them choose a puppy, and they did. We got the puppy last week. The puppy's name is Nova, because we will dance again. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Madeline Dean, Congresswoman from Pennsylvania, from suburban Philadelphia, Montgomery and Berks counties, home to many Jewish American constituents whom I meet with daily. Aviva, Shir, Mirav, Yarden, Michael, all of you, thank you for your, I don't have the right words to describe it because it's beyond courage, it's beyond heart, it's a word I don't yet know. We're grateful that you would spend the time with us at this extraordinarily dark time in your personal lives, in your personal history, but in this extraordinarily dark time for our country and for yours. Day 187. We all know that the events of October the 7th were a barbaric attack by terrorist organization Hamas that killed more than 1,200 men, women, and children and took 240 hostages, at least 32 Americans killed in that initial attack. The cruelty is incomprehensible, and for so many, the nightmare continues. 130 or more people, 133 is what I am understanding, are still held hostage today. I've met with families, including this morning. I've met with families of hostages when I was in Israel twice, on November the 11th, recently in February. I've met with hostage families in Israel, here in DC, as well as in the Philadelphia region. Your stories are heartbreaking. Stories of the experiences of October the 7th. Just this morning, meeting yet again with the parents of Hirsch Goldberg, Poland, a 23-year-old Chicago native who on October the 7th, he was attending the Nova Music Festival with his friends and so many other young people. He ran with his friend Nair, hiding in a roadside bomb shelter with 27 others. Hamas terrorists threw hand grenades and sprayed gunfire, killing many and injuring others, including, as we all saw by video, Hirsch. Hamas footage shows that Hirsch had half his arm blown off as he was loaded into a truck taken to Gaza. He texted a message to his parents, "I love you, and I'm sorry." Of course, Hirsch has nothing to be sorry for. We met again with his parents, Rachel and John, this morning. It is my honor and sad honor to be in your presence and to be in this fight with you. I too walked the Nova fields in February, covered with red poppies, how strangely appropriate, and planted with saplings marking each victim slaughtered in that sliver of horror that you all experienced. I saw images I will never forget. I will continue to hear your stories. I try to take in and absorb some of your pain as I know I cannot. And until every last hostage is home, we demand this of Hamas. We urge Israel, the United States, and the world to demand the same of Hamas yesterday, because this is about our common humanity. Your sons, your daughters, your sisters are our sisters. We demand Hamas bring them home. Thank you.
I want to thank Congresswoman Manning for putting this together. I came here today just to let you know that we stand with you. I mean, our hearts are with the family members. We can only imagine how hard, challenging this is to have a brother or sister, a mom or dad, daughter, whoever it may be. We stand here together. I also want to stand with my colleagues. This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue. This is a humanity issue that we stand with our friends who are suffering. I'm a believer. I thank God for those who got rescued or who have been released, but we pray for those who are still hostage today. We pray for the families. We pray for their quick release. So that's my first message. My second message is, whether it's this administration, whether it's the United Nations, whoever it may be, anytime we hear the word ceasefire, it needs to be joined with release the hostages. There is no ceasefire with the hostages being held. Hamas has to release them. I also would like to say we need to remind ourselves who Hamas is. Their whole goal on 7 October was to murder as many people as possible. They only stopped at 1,200 because that was their capacity at the time. They would have done 20,000 if they could. Their goal is to have a single state with no Israel, no Jewish people at all. They would massacre everyone if they could. This is who we're dealing with. We have to be clear-eyed. We have to have moral clarity. No ambiguity on this. That's why we stand with Israel 100%, or I do. We do here. So I'll keep my comments short. We love you all. We stand by you. I think of Romy, I think of Orr, I think of Keith. There's about 130. And it breaks my heart to hear from Hamas recently that there's not 130 that are alive. Again, we got to remind ourselves who we're dealing with. We're dealing with savages, barbarians who sought to dehumanize, not just kill, but to dehumanize the victims on 7 October, and they continue to do so. Thank you.
I'm Haley Stevens. I'm from Michigan. And too often, over these last 6 months, I'm not asked about the hostages. I am not asked about their family. I am not asked about how Jewish Americans feel waking up. This was inconceivable on October 7th, and it remains inconceivable that 130 free and loving people going about their daily business were attacked, were kidnapped, saw their loved ones killed. I am mad as hell because these people need to come home, and their families deserve dignity and they deserve justice. And we will take the toughest, strongest approach to sharing the truth and to holding Hamas accountable, in calling for the release of these hostages and to sharing the stories of these innocent people. If words could move, if we could deliver the most perfect speech, we'd surely be successful. The words are so important, as are the actions. I want to thank the Biden administration for their unwavering commitment to the hostages, to Vice President Harris for meeting with the families, to sharing their stories, which was all over the national news. Because the words uttered here today, that every single person should be thinking about this, ring ever so very true. I want to thank my colleagues, Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Kathy Manning, for their leadership. And I want to commit as a member of Congress in this body to standing by this effort, to standing by our ally Israel, and to continuing to push and to call and do whatever is possible to return these hostages. We love you all.
Thank you to Kathy and to Debbie and to all of my brothers and sisters who are here. That's who we are. We're part of humanity. We're brothers, we're sisters. Our blood line may be somewhat different, but the blood of life is what we all share. I think I said my name, Sheila Jackson Lee, and from Texas. To come here and stand with the tens of thousands who are in the square, who are over and over again are demanding for the release of human beings, of humanity, of our sisters, our brothers, mothers, and fathers. There is no separation. And we are demanding that these people who represent humanity be released immediately. I want to acknowledge my colleague, Steve Cohen, who was here, and others who may have come, and my dear sister from Florida, who we are sisters in many ways, Frederica Wilson. But I stand here on the shoulders of those who did not make it, and families are screaming out in their night clothes in the darkness of night. I stand with them and tell them that I will never finish or stop until the hostages come home. I started on this campaign of hostages in a particularly unusual way. The hostages taken by Russia, the children taken from Ukraine. then to be able to wake up and to realize that this is a nasty, ugly, deadly tool that is used to demean people, to rip from them their very life, to not let a brother see his mother and father in the condition that they are in or who have passed, or to see and feel the love that these family members have for each other. So I know that noise, it does make a difference, but linked arms make a difference as well. Repetitiveness in our unity, saying that we will not be silenced. And I go back far enough to remember the words for the Iraq War: not on our watch will we continue to allow this to happen and fight in silence. And so to the families, with love, not on our watch, we will not be silenced. We may not know and be able to touch each of your loved ones, but let them know that from the far breadths of America, east to west, north to south, from way down in Howdy country in Texas, that we are standing with you in anger. And it should be said that there are people who don't look like any of us, wear the same clothing, who are as mad, and are standing with you. They're the humanitarian workers who lost their lives, and others who are fighting. Let's count them that they're standing with us, and don't let their voices be silenced, and let them know, or the people know around the world, yes, we are fighting and standing to bring your loved ones home. We will not be silenced, not on our watch. And I will have that on my words day after day, moment after moment, second after second. Because if we do this and stand with the Biden administration, Biden and Harris, it will be seen around the world, and they will know we will not get past these people. We will not get past this web, this steel front. We will not get past, not on our watch. And I thank you for giving me the opportunity to stand and be counted, because the one thing in life that is so very important is to have value and to be worthy. And I want everybody to know that these hostages have value and they are worthy, and we must continue to fight for them. That I will do. Not on my watch will they be victorious over this great love of humanity. Not on our watch.
I'm Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. I live in Miami, Florida, and I have so many Jewish families in my community. My next door neighbor is a rabbi. So this hits real hard for me. And so 8 years ago, schoolgirls in Nigeria were kidnapped, and I went ballistic. So I started a whole movement, Bring Back Our Girls, and the Congress wore red every Wednesday until we got those girls released. So I'm asking now that the Congress wear blue every Wednesday until we get the hostages released. The longer they keep them in captivity, the worse it is. So it's an urgent issue. Don't think that they're just taking good care of them, because they're not. And let's pray that all of them are still alive. Some of the girls that were released in Nigeria are still in therapy today, never back to their real selves. So this is urgent. It is not just something that we think we must do. This is something that we must do. And so every Wednesday, we're going to call attention to the world. Debbie is our blue, Kathy, all of us are wearing our blue, and men are wearing blue ties. And you can join us because after each day, we will take a picture and we will post it all over social media. So social media will know and the world will know what we're doing in Congress to demand, and it's bring back our hostages. We carry these signs, we show these signs, and we're hoping that people will listen the same way they listened for the Nigerian girls. Thank you so much. Yeah,
I want to thank all my colleagues for taking time out to be with us today. As some of you may understand, most of us have multiple hearings that we are missing or stepping aside from, or markups to be here, because we so want to be with the families, to hear their beautiful remarks, to help them get out of bed in the morning and give them the courage to keep fighting this fight and keep talking about their loved ones so that the world doesn't forget about them. I want to end by reminding everyone of two things. Ruby Ken used to be here with us. He was with us earlier this morning with a sand dial, thank you, with a timer, with an hourglass, thank you. Ruby Ken used to be here with us and bring an hourglass, and he would turn it over and watch the sand go through, because he wanted us all to see a visible example of the fact that time is running out. And sadly for Ruby and Hagit, the whole Ken family, time ran out because they received the worst possible news several weeks ago that their son had actually been killed. So time is not on our side on this issue. And we commit to doing everything we can to put pressure where it needs to be put. And that is on Hamas, that is on Qatar, that is on Turkey, that is on Egypt, that is all the governments that have the ability to force Hamas to release the hostages and lay down their arms. And to the rest of the world, I want to say, where is the outrage? Where are the protests against Hamas? We need to see that the world will stand together against terrorists and stand up to the gruesome nature of what they did to people who were going about their lives looking for a peaceful solution down the road. So thank you all to our hostage families for your courage in coming once again to talk about your family members, to make sure that we don't forget. We will not forget. Thank you everyone for being here today.